Hey, peoples, Phil/Poly going here. Welcome to episode, no. Autopilot. No episode, shrug, emote. I want to talk about Dark Souls 2. So I'm thinking what I'll do is fire up a new playlist and add clips to it with commentaries as new news comes out for Dark Souls 2, as we get to take a look at more and more beta footage and just kind of float some wild theories and rampant speculation by you guys for some conversation and feedback as we continue to baby step our way towards March and the Dark Souls 2 eventual release. So this shall be the first of said endeavor. And I gotta apologize, guys. I'm so sorry for the cheeseball still images going on in the background. I am a little bit skittish of including beta footage in this video or scraping some trailers or stuff like that because I don't want to get a copyright strike against me or have the karma police break down my doors. Take that down. So I'll figure out what to do with this down the road. But for now, I'm just going to include some still images. So it works much better as like a podcast than a video. So maybe find something else to watch while this is going in the background, or how about this? So play Dark Souls and listen to this in the background while you're waiting for invasions. But yeah, I apologize for the boring visuals. I will get that ironed out. I was just a little bit apprehensive about pulling in some actual Dark Souls 2 stuff because I didn't want the video to be DOA. So, par for the course, a little bit of context about the video. I gotta say, I'm not part of the beta. I don't have access to any inside information. I mean, come on, it's me. Where would I get access to that kind of thing? Nobody. But I am drawn from the same well that most of us are in terms of YouTube information, videos from the beta, posts on gaming websites, all that kind of thing. So anything that's public information is going to be sort of the basis for this series of commentaries. So cut me a little bit of a break because these are analyses of analyses, or speculation on speculation. There's a pretty hefty meta component to it, so it's a little bit fuzzy, but I think that's kind of the fun of it, that speculation process, especially for a game that you are super excited about and really looking forward to it coming out. Like that process of just sitting there and spinning in your head, like, what if they do this? It would be awesome if they do this. God, I hope they don't do this. And I've experienced a lot of those emotions regarding what I've seen on Dark Souls 2 so far. And my read on the community, the vibe, is that you guys have as well. So I thought it might be fun to do a couple of these and just throw out some wild theories and play the what if game. So away we go. I'm going to start with an easy one and spit out some thoughts on pacing. What I've seen of the pacing. It's very evident. I'm sure we've all seen this. Dark Souls 2 feels a little slow, right? I mean, especially in comparison to Dark Souls 1. And I'm not going to say Dark Souls 1. I'm going to say just Dark Souls or Dark Souls 2. That'll be the distinction. I think that'll be a little bit less annoying and probably clearer and more accurate, and everybody will be better for it. But yeah, it seems like in the beta footage, everybody is kind of bombing around in a medium encumbrance-ish speed. Even some of the lighter characters, like the hunter or the dual swordsman, I would think at least they're the lighter characters, they'd be a little bit more nimble, they'd be a little bit more souped up in whatever stat or factor plays in with sort of your movement speed and your roll speed and stuff like that. And I will say they are a little bit sprightlier from what I've seen, but I mean, nobody is achieving the fast roll type speeds from Dark Souls. So from Dark Souls 2, it seems like it'd be a pretty far stretch of the imagination to achieve these really fast-paced, frenetic battles where you maybe have 4 people going at it at the same time, all fast rolling, all swinging really quick weapons, and it just doesn't seem like Dark Souls 2 has that in it from the beta. Maybe that has to do with just the point in the game or the level of the characters that we're witnessing in a lot of the beta footage. I don't know. I think that could be cool, the slowed pace. For tone, definitely, because in conjunction with sort of the new lighting engine, they got a whole new graphics engine in Dark Souls 2. The lighting looks amazing and hyper realistic and very cool, and it seems to give everything a very moody, very atmospheric, somber quality. I think the slowed speed works really well with that because that little bit of tension, that little bit of it's not moving quite as fast as you want it to, really does add to sort of the sense of danger and like a little bit of the nail-bitey feel to the game that the franchise is known for. Danger and being careful and not playing stupid. I think that could be pretty cool. It might potentially introduce a much more tactical quality to combat too. I've heard that stated in several places. But because there is this extra cost of swinging your weapon, it doesn't happen quite as quickly as you want it to. It doesn't recover maybe as quickly as you want it to. You have to be a lot more choosy with your attacks. You have to be a lot more precise. You have to be a lot more meticulous. And it introduces kind of a chess game quality to combat versus Dark Souls. You could potentially just run up, spam, roll away, iframe your way to safety. And I know that was a gross oversimplification of a one specific style of play in Dark Souls. So I apologize for that. But along those lines, it doesn't seem like that kind of play has any place in Dark Souls 2, at least based on what we've seen. The pace seems to suggest that the spam, roll away does not exist. I feel like that tactical quality is also probably one of the biggest cons against the pace of the game that I've noticed thus far. One of the really charming things and one of the challenging, fun things about Dark Souls was that situation I was talking about just a second ago, where you got a bunch of people all fast rolling, all being very quick and very dodgy, flipping around or rolling around. Like that chaos of fighting is really fun and a really charming aspect of the game. And if everything in Dark Souls 2 is just very serious and very heavy and very tactical, I have some concerns that it will have the longevity, especially in the metagame, especially in the PvP side of things, that Demon Souls and Dark Souls enjoyed. Because it's going to play a lot less like an action game. I think of it as, in my head at least, kind of the difference between Dragon Age and Dragon Age 2. One of them was a lot slower, a little more thoughtful, a little more tactical, played a little bit more like an RPG. One of them was a lot faster, Dragon Age 2, that played a lot more like an action game. And I'm not sure the prior works so well as for that stickiness, that special sauce that gives it the long life in the metagame afterwards in the PvP community. I do think the faster pacing works better for PvP. That's what I'm trying to say. And I will cop to the fact that it might be a difficult judgment to make while watching these clips, because I've experienced this in capturing some of my PvP sessions or my playthroughs and stuff like that. When you're out there in the thick of battle, when you're playing the game, it feels like things are just happening a mile a fucking second. And then when you go back and watch a clip, you're always kind of thinking, I thought stuff was going down a lot faster than that. So it's possible that all of this just comes from, there's a little bit of spectator syndrome going on when I'm watching a lot of these things. I'm a little skeptical of saying that, though, because it has been commented on by people that have played the game. They said, no, it feels a little slower. But anybody that's played it, I haven't come across that has said it feels too slow. They say it feels slower, not it feels too slow. But overall, I think the pacing changes are going to be positive. I am actually a fan of slowing it down a little bit, because I think those moments, I'm imagining those moments where you wait a split second too long before taking an action and end up getting punished for it. Those are going to do wonders for adding tension, and those are going to do a lot to add a more tactical component to the game, which I'm also a fan of. I like chess. So definitely let me know what you guys think about that. I'd be very curious to hear. And in the meantime, I'm going to move on. I feel like I went a little bit long on the pacing discussion. I took a Dark Souls 2 caliber pace to the pacing discussion. That was terrible. I should have just said slower. Moving on. And actually, we're not even going that far away, because this potentially affects pacing as well. But I wanted to talk about the potential addition of new stats in Dark Souls 2. This is being sourced from a video that EpicNameBro put out not too long ago. I guess he got to spend some time with the game and spent the first couple minutes of his time with the game digging into the menus and reading stat descriptions in terms of what affects what. He uncovered some really interesting stuff, and I'll put a link to that video in the description. Actually, I'll put a link to all of the sourced videos that I'm kind of drawing from on this commentary in the description. We'll make a nice little bibliography out of it. But anyways, this is pretty fuzzy, because even he copped to being a little bit iffy about it. He said, did I write this down wrong, or maybe I just misunderstood it? So this is all very what ify. But he mentioned that there might be this new stat, agility, which is different than dexterity. And it potentially affects things like roll speed, maybe. The time it takes you to raise your shield, maybe. The time it takes you to throw a parry, maybe. Maybe even weapon swing speed. I don't know. And I went and cross-checked this in some of the beta footage and looked at some of the level up screens when dudes were sitting down at the bonfire. And it looked like there were 10 stats that you could raise. Dark Souls has 8. Demon Souls has 8. Dark Souls 2 has 10. Maybe. This a whole lot of maybes, but this is the fun part. And it got me thinking a lot about stats. So one, going back to the pacing thing, you can pump points into this stat and then suddenly you do get a fast roll and you do move a lot quicker. So maybe some of the stuff that we were looking at in terms of the slow pacing was just characters who had not sort of fully realized their potential within this one stat or whatever factor affects that in Dark Souls 2. The other interesting side of that is regarding the soul level cap, the generally community accepted 100 to 125 range for participating in the metagame. I feel like I'm jumping around a little bit, but I'm pretty intrigued. So I think my thoughts are racing a little faster than my mouth, and I still feel like I'm talking pretty quickly. But anyways, so Demon Souls and Dark Souls had 8 stats, and each of them had kind of a throwaway stat. In Demon Souls, you had luck, and unless you were a blue blood swordsman, you really didn't put points in luck because it was just generally ignored. Same thing with resistance in Dark Souls. You don't really put points in that. So you've got sort of 7 legit stats that you're going to sink points into, 4 for dealing damage, and then endurance and vitality and all that kind of thing. If we suddenly have legitimate other stats to put points in, is that going to affect that 100 to 125 soul level range? I mean, if you've got these significantly impactful stats that really affect the way your character performs, maybe 125 isn't going to be enough. Are we going to spread points thinner across potentially new stats? Or are we going to say maybe the new norm is 150, maybe the new norm is 160, and you see sort of a shift in the builds, and that you see a shift and an increase in that 125 level that persisted from Demon Souls 120 to 125 into Dark Souls? Maybe that gets shaken up a little bit in Dark Souls 2 as well. Because I feel like the addition of even a single extra stat greatly changes the dynamic of how you're going to spend points. And maybe From Software thought of this. Maybe they addressed this. Maybe they drastically reimagined scaling, and 40 is no longer a magic number in terms of break points. Maybe it's 30 now, or 35 if you have to spread your points a little thinner. But otherwise, I think we're going to have to kick that soul level up a little bit to deal with the addition of even one extra meaningful stat, because you'll have to make decisions. It would suck, actually, to have to make a decision, am I going to be a dex int that can't fast roll? And you'd have to sacrifice endurance and vitality to get a little bit quicker. That just seems kind of lame. So my theory is that if this is true, if there is this agility stat that affects roll speed and other quickness of your character, we kick up the soul level a little bit, and then everybody just sort of puts that at some baseline level. Maybe that just becomes kind of the norm of 40 endurance. And you can absolutely make builds that have less than 40 endurance, but for the most part, most builds have 40 endurance or around there. And I'm wondering if this extra stat, this agility stat, becomes something like that. So you have, your vitality that's somewhere around 40, 45, maybe 50. Endurance is 40, agility is 40, and then you make your decision from there that says, do I want to be dex int? Do I want to be strength dex? Do I want to be a strength vitality gouge, whatever it is, it becomes on top of there. And in order to achieve that, we're going to have to kick up that soul level. And I might be making a stretch there. I understand there's a lot of speculation there. But if you are familiar with Epic's channel, I mean, the dude does his research. He knows his shit about this game, and he has a megaphone in the community. I don't think he'd be throwing out half-cocked theories willy-nilly. He saw something, and he copped to not being sure of it. But, it has been demonstrated in the beta footage that your encumbrance does not affect your roll speed. So there's got to be something else at play, and a stat makes a lot of sense. A quickness stat makes a lot of sense. So I think there might be something to this. And I, for one, am just really curious to see how the community responds to it, what we do and what we decide with some of those metagame etiquette things to compensate for this extra step, mixing it up from a fairly established paradigm that was there of the 120, 125 level in Demon Souls into Dark Souls. So definitely let me know what you guys think about that. If you've come across a video out there or a post or something like that that completely negates my little theory. But for the most part, I'm pretty excited about the addition of a new stat, if that is truly the case, because things from Demon Souls, stat-wise, translated pretty straightly into Dark Souls. There was a little bit of a change with the luck to resistance stat, but even in Demon Souls, luck gave you, I think, plague resistance it was. So it was, and it gave you better drops. So it was sort of like a combination hybrid of resistance and humanity from Dark Souls. You had luck in Demon Souls. Let me know what you think about that, and let me know what you think about what would you do or what do you vote the community does in terms of dealing with this if there is a new stat. We can all play the what if game together. Would you say nope, stick at 125 and you just have to make tougher choices and spread your points a little thinner if that's the way you want to roll, pun intended? Or do you kick up the soul level cap? Do you kick up sort of that generally accepted thing to maybe 150, 160, whatever the magic number is that allows you to get 40 maybe in one more stat? I still feel like I have a ton of stuff that I could talk about. I've actually been taking a lot of notes as I'm watching these videos. I'm going all professional journalist and shit. Not at all, actually, because I say things like going all professional journalist and shit kind of nullifies the whole thing right there. I wanted to talk about phantoms. There's some major changes to phantoms and throw out some theories on that. I wanted to talk about the critical revamps. Parries and ripostes and backstabs seem to be really different. But I'm going to cap it there. I don't want this thing to go too long, especially because in essence, it is just an audio track. So I'll save those for future installments in the series. In the meantime, if there's anything that you guys have come across that you maybe would like to discuss or hear some thoughts on, definitely toss them my way. Let me know if you like this. Let me know if you like the format. Like I said, not necessarily with the still images in the background. I think I'm going to do some sort of goofy slideshow or something like that. Which again, I apologize for. It's pretty cheeseball, but I wanted to get this out there and just sort of get the ball rolling with this series. Let me know if you like it. Give me a thumbs up if you do, thumbs down if you don't. Always leave comments and I will respond the best I can. I'm still able to keep up with all the comments, so definitely keep the conversation coming. And I will put out another one of these probably pretty quickly. These are pretty easy to make because I don't have to really gather anything up. I can just sit down and start talking. So let me know if you like it, and thanks a ton as always for listening, for watching. Bibliography wise, okay, so there's a couple of key videos that I've checked out, and I'll include links to these in all the descriptions. The first was from Rurikhan. I guess he got to play a couple minutes of demo at Gamescom not too long ago this summer. The video from EpicNameBro that I mentioned. I've been checking out a ton of stuff from VatiVidya, of course. Martyrs is putting together, he's compiling and sort of curating a pretty kick-ass playlist of demo footage. So thanks to all of those guys for their efforts. I am absolutely standing on your shoulders for a lot of this stuff. And I will keep at it if you dig it. I'll actually probably keep at it even if you don't, because it's interesting for me. Hopefully it's interesting for all. Anyways, before I start rambling, thanks as always. We'll catch you next time. Bye.